Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. Hope you guys are waking up and feeling awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's had a great week out there as we're heading off into our weekend. I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty happy that it's Friday. I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same exact way. But we do have a lot of weather to talk about. The first thing we'll discuss, of course, is today's weather. We'll speak on current conditions, watches and warnings, outlooks, and all that stuff. And then we'll break it down section by section. We'll spend the most time on the south central U.S. because once again, we do have a similar setup compared to what we've seen all work week, and that is the risk of isolated to scattered supercells to develop in like western Texas, Oklahoma, maybe even all the way up into sections of Kansas. So these storms did produce yesterday. We had a couple confirmed tornadoes, some that were photogenic, especially in the panhandle of Texas. So could be a similar day today, later on this afternoon to this evening, compared to what happened yesterday in some of the same regions. So we'll spend some extra time on that. And then we'll switch gears and we'll speak on what's to come throughout the rest of the weekend and especially into early next work week. Monday looks to be a big day in regards to severe weather across central portions of the country. So the day after Tuesday could be pretty bad too, and then we have to watch Sunday here in the next couple of days also. But all eyes are really specifically on Monday. So we'll speak on all of that. We'll talk about what we know, the ingredients. We'll nerd out with you guys, explain what's all coming together to create certainly a significant severe weather day. So we'll do that, break it all down. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that we can pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can do that and so others have the opportunity to do so too. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is current conditions, current radar across the entire lower 48. I mean, we're waking up to a pretty soggy Friday morning for a lot of areas. A lot of rain and storm activity, especially west and east of the Mississippi River. You can see it. We got a complex of storms going over some of the same areas that saw it yesterday morning, like along and just north and south of the Red River. We got some storms chugging along here in northern Oklahoma, areas of Kansas. We got just scattered heavy rain across areas of the Midwest. We got some rain up here in the UP of Michigan. We got a cluster of rain in the Ohio Valley, even some showers and heavy rain in like upstate South Carolina, western North Carolina. So there is a lot of just areas of energy, and we're starting to get an increase of moisture across the western U.S. too, because of this trough that's about to move in this lower pressure. But so there is a lot going on radar, nothing too significant or severe, but there is a lot of rain ongoing. The atmosphere is very moist, pretty far north, a little bit more unusual for this time of the year, especially for areas further north. But as far as watches, warnings, and advisories, we do have some winter weather advisories across areas this year in Nevada. High wind watches across like New Mexico, red flag warnings also in the pink. This is because we're going to have a full trough ejection across this area, and normally that kicks up some very high winds across the southwest. So they've already got watches up for that. And we got areas of fog across the south because of all this muggy air and just humid conditions in place. And it's been like that all week. It's definitely felt like early summer across the south this week. But the Storm Prediction Center outlook. Now, I just want to note that this will change. I mentioned it yesterday morning that I thought they would bump up the tornado risk. They did. They bumped up the hail risk too and actually made it go up another category from a slight to an enhanced risk. That could very well happen again today. Right now, as I'm making this video before 7 a.m. Eastern time, we only have a slight risk. Level 2 out of 5, Amarillo down to Lubbock, all the way down to just south of Lubbock. But I do want to note, huge area at least has a risk of thunderstorms. Large area has a risk of thunderstorms today. But let's go on and zoom into this area. Amarillo down to Lubbock, just north of Midland and Big Spring. This is where it stops, and it does ooze a little bit into southwest Oklahoma. Marginal risk goes all the way up to just south of Woodard, Perryton, over to Oklahoma City does include them, Wichita Falls, Abilene, Midland, Big Spring, down to Fort Stockton. What's driving this? Tornado risk right now is at a 2% risk from Amarillo through Lubbock to just south. Plainview right in the middle of it, Clovis, New Mexico also. I could see this bumping up to a 5% risk. It'll show up in the brown if it does. The wind threat, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the hail threats in the yellow, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. But guys, there also is a 10% risk of significant sized hail, which is 2-inch or larger hail. And we will most likely get that today. It's just who's going to see it. But we are definitely going to get supercells capable of producing gigantic hail in these areas. So you guys know the deal out here in western Texas and how these storms behave and the gigantic hail that they can produce sometimes. And this will be another day of it. So definitely hail will be the biggest widespread threat. So moving forward, the excessive rainfall outlook, there is just a 5% risk of flash flooding occurring across this entire green area, which covers a lot of areas right here. But there is a higher risk in the yellow, and this does cover some of the severe risk areas today. Yellow area, that is a 15% risk of flash flooding occurring. So we could get as these storms kind of develop and grow up scale across western Texas into Oklahoma. We could get some very heavy rainfall later this evening into the overnight hours into these areas. So we'll watch out for that. But breaking it down region by region, the southeast first. We're not going to zoom into any areas, but I do just want you guys to kind of watch this cluster of rain right in here and how it just kind of marches its way west to east. A little bit more flow in the atmosphere. So we move forward here. We get into about midday. Storms are chugging through middle Tennessee, getting into the central portion of Kentucky. We got storm action also into Mississippi. And then we take it to about, this is around dinner time. It's around 5, 6 o'clock, depending on your time zone. We got storms now starting to move into Alabama. Still some pop-up activity in Mississippi, but storms are now starting to move into eastern Tennessee. Widespread storm activity, as you can tell, in Kentucky. And then by the time we start to get into the late evening hours, storms are starting to move. They're still moving through eastern Tennessee, starting to move through southwest North Carolina, moving through northern Georgia. And then we get into the overnight hours, like after midnight, for example. This is like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Some heavy rain storm activity could be around in the Carolinas, Virginia. And whatever rain moves in tonight in the Carolinas is the same rain that's like around the Mississippi River right now. So all this energy will make its way west to east as just kind of shortwave kind of moves through and creates an opportunity for some showers and storms. By the time I'm waking up tomorrow morning, things are a lot more calm. Now, the Northeast, pretty relaxed right now. But as we're starting to get into this afternoon, widespread thunderstorm activity could develop across really anywhere across the Ohio Valley. The central apps, look at Ohio, some heavy rain and storms moving into the western portion of the state. Could be already some storms in the eastern portion of the state. We got rain, scattered downpours across northern PA, the southern tier of New York. We take it into this evening. Could get some shower activity across Vermont, New Hampshire, southern Maine, up into the Adirondacks. A lot of storm activity into Ohio, though, West Virginia. And then we start to take into the middle of the night, and it could just be a rainy night across the state of PA, southern New York. I mean, even some storms still hanging around in eastern Ohio. Scattered rain, across the area, state of West Virginia. We got some rain starting to move into New York City. Then we're waking up tomorrow morning, and it is just a soggy start to your weekend across New England and the Northeast. Pockets of heavy rain. Some areas just getting light to moderate rain. But, I mean, that's a big chunk of rain waking up around 8 o'clock tomorrow morning across the Northeast and areas in the Mid-Atlantic. So, and this is rainfall between now and about 2 a.m. Sunday. You can see that the chance of heavy rain is there, across the apps and west. These pockets of purple you see is where we can get over an inch of rain. And a lot of rain could fall up here in the Northeast, too. I actually will show you guys. This is rainfall between now and 2 a.m. Sunday. If you live in the purple areas, this is where you can get over an inch of rain. Some areas a half an inch to an inch. So nice soaking of rain. And now the south central U.S. is where we'll spend a little bit more time. This morning, we got some energy out here. We take it to about midday. Not a whole lot going on. Atmosphere is not producing much. But then you see these supercells developing in the panhandle of Oklahoma. And there's not a lot of flow in the atmosphere. I'm going to show a closer look at this here in a second. So they're just kind of meandering around. So I've mentioned this yesterday. It's like a storm chaser's paradise because the storms, of course, it's open area out there you can see for miles. So the storms are kind of forming and not moving much. You don't have to drive much. But if you live out here, you got a farm, or you just happen to live where these storms hit, it is not, of course, your paradise. It is a dangerous situation. But all these storms will kind of cluster up and develop a big, what we call mesoscale convective system. and kind of sweep east and then start to move down the Red River again. So once again, we're waking up for the third morning in a row with storms cruising just north and south of the Red River area, the border of Texas and Oklahoma, with scattered downpours in this area. But just a closer look at, say, southwest Texas. I know we've looked at this area many times, but there is a risk of severe weather down here, not as high as northern sections of western Texas, but you can see some scattered downpours and maybe some supercells developing down here. This is 9 p.m., 2 p.m. I'm sorry, 9 p.m., 2 p.m., 9 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m. This is midnight. This is 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Most of the storm activity, at least the significant storm activity, developing north of Big Spring, Abilene, up into this region. The rest of the area, not as active compared to what we've seen the last few days. But we take it up here to the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas and Oklahoma itself. We start to get to about, come on, get the moving for me. It's not going to move. I'm going to have to go over here and show it some attention. We start to get to about 3 p.m. We start to get some activity developing here. We get to 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and this is where we can get some supercells that actually could develop a little bit further west in the panhandle of Texas today. You know, west of Amarillo, you see these circle things coming off these cells. This is where we have more intense rotating updrafts. So we got some supercells developing here. We got one developing kind of between Lubbock and Wichita Falls, south of Childress. And these are the storms that could really produce a tornado. They tap in to an unbothered environment, and even though there's light flow in the atmosphere, there's just enough to create a quick spin up. So be aware if you live out in these areas. If you get hit by one of these storms, you guys know it could produce a tornado. It could produce very large hail, damaging hail, to blow your windshields out. You don't want to drive right into one of these storms. 7 p.m., storms are right around Amarillo, north and south. 8 p.m., still storms developing. I mean, sunset's starting to come in. We got supercells developing. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we upgrade to an enhanced risk in this area today. In fact, I think we will. But I really think we will. But, you know, see these storms, Amarillo to Lubbock to Childress. I mean, you got supercells developing. And then this thing grows up scale. I mean, it's around midnight tonight. Storms are starting to cluster up, and the damaging wind threat could actually increase temporarily. And then all this storm activity and heavy rain activity will just kind of cruise east finally. So 4 a.m., storms blast you again in Childress, 2 to 4 a.m., and then they start cruising down the Red River and waking up tomorrow morning to another intense cluster of storms hitting Lawton, maybe all the way up to Oklahoma City, down to Wichita Falls, almost maybe all the way down to like Abilene. And if you look at the updraft velocity swath, it really indicates some of these stronger updrafts in the panhandle of western Texas. So this is where you can have your highest tornado threat in these areas right here of Texas. So just be aware of that, guys. I mean, it's a serious, you got to take it serious. Even though these storms are more so isolated, they could pack one heck of a punch if they just happen to hit your area. So what I'm trying to do here is this, and then, so rainfall between now and 1 a.m. Sunday. I mean, this area in like red could get over 2 inches of rain. A lot of rain could fall in this area. So Oklahoma City over to Amarillo, Lubbock, down to Wichita Falls, Lawton, McAllister. It could be just a corridor of 1 to 2 inches of rain over the next 36 hours. So be aware of that. North Central U.S., just multiple areas of energy this morning. A lot of storm activity by about midday in Indiana. You can see all those storms down here and clusters of heavy rain. That energy will fully make it into Ohio. Just more so a solid light to moderate rain up here in the eastern UP and northern areas of lower Michigan. But southern areas of lower Michigan could actually get some thunderstorms. And then could get some more additional storms this evening in the southern half of Illinois. And then by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, things are calm. But they're not going to stay calm in this area of the country for long. Western U.S., it's pretty quiet, but a system finally moves in. They'll bring you guys some rain across Oregon, California. And by the time I'm waking up tomorrow morning, we have a little cyclone spinning around here and bringing some rain across the California coastline. We haven't seen a whole lot of that lately. And, if we look at how much rain could fall between now and 5 p.m. Sunday, I mean, could get a few tenths of an inch of rain. So this will be much needed across this region. LA could get all the way up to Santa Maria. Could get I mean, maybe as much as a half an inch of rain. So we'll see what happens. And then some of those higher terrains up against the California coastline could squeeze out a little bit more rain. But even the Valley of California could get some rain off this. So temperatures, northeast, nice day. 60s, 70s, a little bit of an onshore flow in Boston. That'll keep you guys a little bit cooler. So it's going to be one of those days in Boston where it might be in the 50s, but you go 30 to 40 miles, west of the city, and it's in the 60s and 70s. Southeast, warm, humid, early summer type air mass. Pocket of cooler air across the plains with just cloud cover and rain. And warming up across the western U.S. ahead of a cool down with a trough that's going to move in. But moving forward, talking about tomorrow's severe weather outbreak. Once again, it doesn't look too bad. Right, just a very small baby marginal risk across areas of New Mexico and the panhandle of Texas again. But, as always, I wouldn't be surprised if we wake up tomorrow morning to a larger marginal risk and a slight risk embedded in that marginal risk. But right now, level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather and just a general risk of thunderstorms across the entire green area. So, and now moving to day 3, this is when that trough that's going to dig down across the southwest, bring that mid-level jet streak across the high and central plains, will start to, impact the forecast area. So it's wild. We have a marginal level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather from the Canadian-U.S. border all the way down to the Mexico-U.S. border down here. So this includes all the high plains, a good chunk of them, and just the plains in general. Then we have a little area right here in Nebraska and areas of southern South Dakota that has a slight risk already for Sunday. I'm trying to make sure I keep forgetting today is Friday, so day 3 is Sunday. So right now, all we know is there's a 15% risk of severe weather, and that's all we always know at day 3. So, Sunday was always a day that I wanted to, pay attention to also, but it's more of a conditional day. Not as much forcing in the atmosphere, enough pushing the atmosphere to get these storms going. There'll be a bit of a capping mechanism in place, a little bit of warm air aloft that prevents these storms from getting going. So if any storms do get going Sunday, they can produce all hazards. It's just if they do. Monday's the big day. This is Monday, okay, next week. All right, we have an enhanced risk already. It's pretty far north, guys. This is something you see in May or June. The pattern has just been like a month and a half in advance this week. It's wild. But the orange area, that's a 30% risk of any severe weather. This includes a good chunk of the state of Iowa. It includes, obviously, Des Moines up to Minneapolis, Eau Claire, Madison, almost to Rockford, down to Kansas City, all the way down into, sections of eastern Kansas. So here's just a zoomed-in look at this. This is going to be a big day of severe weather. There's a lot of ingredients coming together that scream big severe weather event. How big, I'm not quite sure, but we're about to talk about those ingredients here in a second. But just a closer look. Slight risk, level 2 out of 5, goes from Chicago all the way up into the Canadian-U.S. border. Includes most of the UP of Michigan. I know I got some loyal people tuning in. Lisa, Steven. You guys have a risk of severe weather for Monday. Sioux Falls, Sioux City, a slight risk. Lincoln, slight risk. Omaha, you're in that enhanced risk. Oklahoma City, all the way down to Wichita Falls, slight risk of severe weather. Huge area. Then day 5, the tilt is on with this storm, as it normally is the next day. We got a risk of severe weather that stretches from areas of the south central U.S. through the mid-Mississippi Valley, through areas of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, all the way up into interior sections of New England. Whole entire state of Indiana and Ohio included in this. So Detroit, Cincinnati, Louisville, St. Louis, Fayetteville, all the way down to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Buffalo, Binghamton, Burlington, Vermont. Risk of severe weather, level 2 out of 5, 15% risk of severe weather. So, what's driving this setup, guys? So, I've been trying to explain this the best way I can, and I feel like each time I do it, I learn more and I get better at doing it. But of course, there's going to be off days. But what you're looking at is the 500 millibar chart. So this is a good thing to look at when you're trying to figure out the pattern, and where a trough is, and the better flow in the mid levels are in the atmosphere. So I'm put my cursor on this. So this is telling us that the winds are going at 70 knots at about 500 millibars. 500 millibars when you convert that to feet, is about 18,000 feet up in the air. So it's not going on the surface. You don't have 80, 85 mile per hour winds going on the surface when you convert knots to miles per hour, but it tells us where the best flow is, kinematic energy, kinematics meaning wind energy is in the atmosphere. So what you see here is this big area that's kind of an eyesore on your screen out west. This is a trough digging down. And as it does, it causes the jet stream to buckle, then it creates flow around the jet. So the flow at this point is going just like this. It's going like that, and then it's going like this. And we have this other little trough that's kind of digging down right here, so the flow's kind of going like this. Light flow down here in this region. But that is where your main avenue of flow is going for Saturday, tomorrow. So that little bit of flow will, and you can see it, get some storms going in this area. Now, you might wonder, well, what about this area? Well, there's not a lot of moisture at the surface because it's out west. Dew points are low. The first circle I drew, you already got some moist air rising into this area. It's already in place for a lot of areas. Now, it's probably not going to get too far north, but it's already in place. And one thing I want you to note before we move forward here is you look at these wind barbs, like you see this one and this one. See how that flag is pointing to the south? That is where the flow's going. It's coming from. So flow's going just like this in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So hope that makes sense. And as we move forward here, the thing I want you to focus in on is where, is the purples and the shade of blue on your screen. That's where your best kinematics are, wind energy for thunderstorms. You always look for kinematics and thermodynamics. Kinematics is wind energy, get these storms going. Where is the low-level jet, mid-level jet? Thermodynamics is how warm your temperatures are, how moist is the atmosphere, what's the difference of temperatures as you go from the surface and gain height in the atmosphere. That's what you call lapse rates that create storm fuel. And then your Cape values itself, your storm fuel itself, how high is that? That's thermodynamics, okay? So you keep going and we start to get into Sunday. Now things begin to change. So we take it to about Sunday afternoon. What you notice is this feature now has moved a little bit further west to east. So now we have better flow over the middle of the country compared to Friday. So it's going like this and it's shooting across the southwest pretty dramatically like this. And if you're wondering why we have high wind watches across like New Mexico, it's because of all this wind flow going over the southwest. Now, of course, this isn't at the surface, but all these high winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere do mix to the surface in the form of very strong winds. So, for example, you got an 80 knots mid-level jet screaming across New Mexico. That's getting close to 100 miles per hour at 18,000 feet when you convert that miles per hour. And then when you get to the surface, it's a little bit less, but still that converts to probably 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts at the surface. So in general, we got a lot more increased flow across the middle of the country now, and for a pretty large area. So now we have a risk of severe weather across this entire region for Sunday. That's why we have a large marginal risk. Flow is starting to move over this area. We got a lot of moist air already in place getting pulled north because the flow's coming out the south, this case in the mid-levels in the southwest. So a lot more flow starting to overlap what's already a pretty moist environment. Now, dew points will only be in the 40s and 50s up in the Dakotas, but you got to think, the more you get like inland and away from the ocean, especially as you get out west, it's like you're going up a plateau. You're gaining elevation. The higher up you get, you don't need dew points in the 60s and 70s to get severe weather because you're higher up in elevation. We'll go into that maybe another time one of these days. But anyways, a lot better flow. Now you get into Monday and it's plentiful. Okay, so this entire trough ejects area of energy, and we have a ton of flow. 70, 80, 85 knots of mid-level flow. This mid-level jet's basically screeching across the middle of the country, overlapping a very moist environment. And what you have here is impulses of energy that enhances the flow to actually push and get these storms going. So you have little surface features, what we call short waves or just surface lows that kind of ride this avenue right here. And this really gets those storms going and really enhances the low-level flow. And it's always just trying to figure out where those little pieces of energy are going to be. So a lot of flow over the middle of the country. Monday's the big severe weather day. It's going right over a pretty moist environment that's getting pulled all the way up into the Midwest, and then we get into Tuesday, and it's the same way. Now, it's a little bit more of a zonal looking flow, but still, plenty of pretty much a screeching mid-level jet right across the middle of the country, across this area. Or where will your best moisture be? Where will the boundary be between dry air and moist air? That's, what we got to figure out. That's probably where your best thunderstorm activity will be, which will be across a pretty large area of the country, probably right into here. So next thing you look at, and I'm going to show you guys this very quickly, and we're going to spend a little bit more time on this over the next couple of days, is that low-level jet. And this is where we can really see where those surface features are. So we get into, I'm going to look at Monday. Low-level flow is best up here in the upper Midwest, and this is probably because we have some sort of surface low right in here. So that enhances the southerly flow. So if you look at these wind barbs, they're coming more so out the south rather than the southwest, which is in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So this is the flow at like going about 45, 50 knots at about 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air. So that little bit of directional turning with heights puts a spin in the atmosphere, enhances the tornado threat. And that'll be the highest up here actually in the Midwest. You got little impulses of favorable low-level flow down to Oklahoma, but more of a widespread, what we call low-level jet, is right over Iowa, sections of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Missouri, Kansas, etc. And that's why you have that enhanced risk Monday up in here, because your better low-level kinematics are way up there. Now, as we start to get into, you can see how that low-level jet really screams. Could have a big wind event, guys, across the Great Lakes region. It's a Monday night and a Tuesday. But you can tell, as we get into Tuesday, I don't know if the tornado threat will be very high across the southern plains, but you get into the Ohio Valley, we could have an increased tornado threat. You see how that low-level jet's better in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, heck, even into southern Ontario. Heck, guys, even into interior sections of the New England, Northeast area. This is where your better tornado threat will probably be Tuesday, actually. So, yeah. Hope that makes sense. Now, all this is going to be overlapping a pretty moist environment. Saturday, not a whole lot of moist air to the north. We get into Sunday. Now, your dew points creep all the way up into the 50s, even low 60s, all the way up into the Dakotas. That'll get the job done for severe weather for this area of the country. Now, we get into the 60s and Nebraska points south. That's plenty of moist air that's being overlapped by a decent amount of flow in the atmosphere. Now, we start to get into Monday. Just check it off the box. You get dew points into the 60s and even low 70s, all the way up into the Midwest, guys. We're getting almost dew points in the 60s into Duluth. All right, so, there's no point even spending a lot of time on this. There's a ton of moist air in the atmosphere. And then we get into Tuesday. It takes more of a tilt, but tons of moisture in the atmosphere from Texas. You can see where that boundary is that I keep mentioning. Okay, separates dry and very moist, unstable air, but a ton of moisture in the atmosphere. And this will aid in higher Cape levels. And I just want you to look at the Cape levels for, Sunday evening's already high, right? Cape Valley is well over 2,500 joules per kilogram. But you look at, say, Monday afternoon, Monday evening, explosive energy in the atmosphere. Cape levels over 3,000 joules per kilogram. You don't even need that high in Cape into Iowa. And you even got a slither of over 2,000 joules per kilogram up into Minnesota, but a ton of rocket fuel to really fuel these storms. Check that off the box. And then Tuesday we do it again. I really think we got to watch the Ohio Valley for an increased tornado threat for Tuesday, especially. But guys, even when you have this much moist air and enough flow in the atmosphere, even 1,000 joules per kilogram in Cape will get the job done. Now, I was going to show you guys the global model here, but there's no really any point. It's not going to show us the storms. We really have to get closer. We have to get the short-range model guidance to really figure out what the structure of these storms are going to be. We can kind of guess it based off the ingredients out here, but it's really no point in showing it. There really isn't, guys, because it's going to be wrong. It's just global. It's not the great with trying to simulate what the radar is going to look like as far as these storms. So that's all I got, guys. We'll continue to break this down. Might double up on the video sometime this weekend. Don't want to promise anything, but that's all I got. Stay safe. Sorry about no devotion this morning. Today is an early day where I have to get to school early, mentor kids. So just just didn't get the time to get to it today. So we'll get back to it tomorrow morning. God bless. Have a wonderful Friday. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.